Good morning. Welcome to part 2 of our episode 4 podcast on discrimination. Some notes with me today for this particular case. I'll be covering a case about age discrimination.
And I'll be doing a case about sex discrimination.
Now, the aim of the podcast will be to review the cases, have a look at the awards, what happened, but also look at how that could have been prevented, what kind of measures you could have taken as a business, some of the implications generally for a business, in terms of future potential problems that you could have if you don't implement these strategies within the business. So my case is a case that happened in 2017. The award was a few years later. It was a lady called Eileen Jolly who was dismissed from an NHS trust. She was 86 and failed to upload details of cancer patients awaiting non-urgent breast reconstruction surgery into a new database. This meant some patients had to wait more than a year for surgery, which was a breach of NHS guidelines. Jolly, who had been employed at the hospital since 1991, claimed that she had not been properly trained to use the new system, which led to mistakes being made. So the Reading Employment Tribunal claimed that the NHS Trust's decision to dismiss her was based on her age, and said there had been unpleasant remarks made about her age and health specifically, questioning her ability to walk the length of the building and her frailty. Okay, so the lessons to learn within that, there was a £200,000 award made in the case, which is after tax, it's basically £129,375 £129,375, which the Trust, Royal Berkshire NHS Foundation Trust, was ordered to pay within 14 days. So you can see the size of the problem. And so let's have a look at that in bit parts. So first of all, there's a few things here to look at. The lady wasn't protected from unfair comments about her age and her ability to carry out a role. So a company within them circumstances would need to have a discrimination policy and some education around discrimination within the business. So diversity, perhaps have a diversity champion within the business who would coach, really update people, give people different mail outs, perhaps just educate them around how to really respect people generally. In addition, there was a lack of training given to Mrs. Jolly because she was deemed older, so she was 86, and I guess the assumption was she was going to retire anyway. Why would we put her through this new training program? But then, of course, not really taking the steps to look at whether she had been trained sufficiently to carry out this particular task. There was a fault there of the trust itself, not of Mrs. Jolly. So when she's dismissed, then obviously this is deemed as an unfair dismissal by the judge. The judge states that the claimant had not been carrying out the role in the way that the respondent wished the role to be carried out and had not understood the nature of the role that she was expected to perform by the respondent. Instead of the respondent addressing that issue directly and either training her and then requiring her to do the role as directed, the claimant was dismissed. This was because of her age. So you can see there that this became an age discrimination, and this was based around some of the treatment prior to the case, and also the fact that she was ignored in terms of training. So when we look at a business in general, any kind of case that comes about or health and safety claim can be prevented by putting different training in place and different policies. So it's very, very important when what business can afford a £200,000 settlement. Next week. Have you seen a settlement that size?
I haven't seen a settlement that size in quite a long time. To be fair, I've seen big settlements, but not 200,000. To be fair,
yeah, it's large, isn't it? It's huge, and I'm sure you're sat there as a business owner thinking, I can't afford that, basically, because very few businesses could. And, even though this is an NHS trust, I'm sure that's a big hit on their finances in addition. So I suppose the lesson to learn is to look at how you're managing diversity in the workplace. Are you putting different strategies in place? Are you creating the right culture within the business? Have you got a good whistleblowing policy as well? We spoke previously on one of our last podcasts about the third party problem, where I may say something to Ben and he's not offended, but somebody who overhears it in the background is offended, and they are the person that can bring about the tribunal because they're offended by what's been said.
Yeah.
So we've got to look at all those different angles of what can be said, what can't be said in the workplace, put the right diversity policies in place, create the right culture, because you as a business owner or business director are going to be culpable for this ultimately. It doesn't matter that you're not the person saying it, you're not the person that's involved in that interaction. It's you ultimately that owns the business, and your responsibility is that you've got to put these policies, procedures in place, or you're going to be culpable. You're going to be the person that's paying out, the £200,000, which is quite extreme, I will say. But even if it's £50,000 and then you've got legal fees on top, you're still looking at a hit of £20,000. You can win a tribunal and get hit by £20,000 legal fees. So you've got to really, really be cautious how you approach things. And it's all about creating a toolkit, creating those barriers to prevent you from being culpable in any instance, basically. So having the right policies, procedures. We always bang on about this, I know, on every show. It's so important. It's like a suit of armour when you go into battle, if you like.
Yeah, it's true. And it's like you said, even if you've got the right toolkit, I think a point to be made that's massively, it's the training behind it. And even if you've got the right tools in place, if you're not training the staff or having people that understand how to deal with these issues, because comments are going to be made, we understand we live in a world where people are going to say things that they don't mean to be offensive. People are going to make comments. But if you've not got training in place to show management how to handle these processes, because you're a business owner, you're not going to be on site 24/7. It's not something, people that are going to be paying this £200,000 claim will not have been there. They will have had no idea of this actual issue itself, will they?
No, ultimately, and ultimately they can't really take action.
Yeah.
Because they haven't taken the right steps. They haven't overseen the fact that these steps have been implemented within the business. So if you haven't implemented those steps, it's tough. It's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, for me, it's as you train down the line and you put processes in place for your management staff so they can put process in place for the staff underneath them, it just shows you'll have that continuity. And for the sake of an hour a week or half an hour here or there and little amounts of money backwards and forth monthly, whatever it may be, you'll save yourself 200 grand.
Also, I mean, you're going to create a better work culture.
Oh,
aren't you? So you're not going to have unhappy employees. You're going to be, this is, as long as you yourself are putting down the guidelines on how you should behave in the workplace, which people should know. Let's be fair, it's common sense generally, but unfortunately, not everyone has that level of common sense within a business. So.
No, exactly. And a lot of people may say that, given the training, they still may not have been able to use the systems for this lady. But the point is, you have to allow them the chance. You have to allow everyone the chance. You can't say because someone's too young, they won't understand it. Someone's too old, someone's male, someone's female. Give everyone the same opportunity. If you give that, yes, the outcome may have ended up being the same. Of the work may not have been carried out in the right way. So just giving someone the chance of training to go through the process, you may come to the same outcome, but you don't spend £200,000 afterwards because you've done it in the right means. It is a case of capability at that point.
Yeah, of course. And of course, if you haven't put training in place, how can you expect somebody to do a task correctly? I mean, I only have to look at my DIY, which my partner would verify. I'm not the greatest DIY person, but I've never trained in it. So, I've got that excuse.
Yeah, so don't go hiring for any jobs like that, to be fair.
Okay. Okay, so that pretty much concludes that. So, I mean, ultimate tips to take away from that: ensure you've got the right policy in place for diversity, educate your staff around attitudes, culture within the workplace, how they should behave, and what your expectations are of the behaviour. pass that down through your management teams, your supervisors, ensure that that's being implemented on a regular basis. Try to get people to understand why we behave in that way. In addition, so part of your diversity training, and it may be worth investing in some diversity training. There are a range of diversity trainings out there that you can implement, whether that be learning or whether you have a diversity coach within the business who has sessions with the staff, and also introduce a good whistleblowing policy where people can report incidents, so you can keep on top of these measures. So perhaps in this case, if somebody had heard that the lady was getting these comments and had whistleblown, it could have been addressed a little bit earlier. That person could have been brought to book. The lady herself could have been sat down and said, really sorry, you've been having to put up with this behaviour. We've taken steps to stamp this out. And this would have made her feel more valued, better about it. I'm not saying it would have prevented the case full stop, but it would have gone a long way towards doing so.
Yeah, and like you said, back it up with an equality and diversity policy, so that
absolutely.
Which will follow a certain process, so that your management literally have a step-by-step of what they should be doing, and as long as they've logged that and it's all time and date stamped, the chances are you've done policies correct, procedurally you've done things correct, so you're not going to get that fine at the end of it. And I think it sounds simple, but that's what we miss, and we skip them corners or cut the corners, and that's when we end up at a point where the business is impacted massively.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, no one can afford that kind of hit on the business. And when somebody says you've got to pay it within 14 days, it could close the business down.
I mean, I couldn't pull 200 grand out of my pocket in 14 days, could you?
I don't think I could. I'm 51 now, Ben, but I don't think I could. But yeah, my piggy bank doesn't stretch that far. Okay.
Right. Well, I'm gonna. You're okay with me looking.
Yeah. Carry on. Yeah.
So I'm gonna look at this case. So mine's a little bit different because with mine, I've gone for a case where the employer has actually been tried to be quite understanding with this case, and has been caught out anyway. And then we're going to explain why, and why you've got to be careful about sometimes going too far on the let's be really nice side of things. So mine was an office manager who was discriminated against after she was told she was not allowed to work remotely from her son's hospital bedside as he underwent treatment for cancer. A tribunal has ruled. So this lady has actually won an award of, let's have a look at this, £59,612.58. Because when it went to tribunal, I'll go through a few more of the notes in a second. So, but I'll just summarize it. So this lady's son was going through cancer treatment, and as you can appreciate, as anyone would be, her head wasn't in the right place. She wanted to be with her son. You're not going to want to leave your son, and so she just wanted to do a bit of the work on the laptop, because the workplace had laptops, they had phones for the staff, so she wanted to do it from the bedside. In this case, the owner, I won't go through the names and stuff, his decision was to deny the working request and the working remotely, and he likened it to a rugby player who asked to continue playing after sustaining a head injury and needed to have the decision taken away from them. He said, as a caring family man, I would not expect my wife or a member of staff to continue working in such a stressful situation. So as you can see, this business owner isn't trying to say, no, you're not doing it because it's not going to work for us and I'm being really harsh. His actual take on the case was, I don't want you to be working whilst dealing with your son going through cancer treatment, because he didn't think this lady would be in the right mindset. The problem he had is he didn't seek medical attention. He didn't actually look into this request. He didn't see if any options were available. All he did was deny this request. And the reason this lady, and it sounds crazy that it's sex discrimination right now, but the reason that she's started with sex discrimination is because the gentlemen in the office were allowed to, and there was gentlemen working remotely for a short period of time, and they were working from the laptops from home on certain days. So she said it's because she's a woman that he's not allowed it. And again, I don't know if you think the same, Adrian, but to me, it doesn't sound like he's doing that as in you're a woman.
I don't think it's malicious. It's just careless. So I think he's been a bit careless, and I do feel for him in some ways, but in other ways, the law's the law. It's a little like, you can't say one person can do one thing, another person can't. It just can't be done under law. So.
And the chances are with this one, I'll go through kind of all the claims and the way that it's split in terms of the value in a second. But the chances are with this one, he may have actually came to the same decision of her not working bedside, because as we can all appreciate, it'll be an increasingly difficult place to be working and concentrate when you've got your son going through cancer treatment, you've got people coming past you. There may be sensitive information on the laptop.
Will it affect your work?
Yeah, there's a chance that it'll have a massive impact on your work. But if he needed to go through a process, he needed to look into this, check if there was any sort of alternate arrangements that he could have provided for this member of staff. And again, he may have turned it down eventually, because we're not saying you have to accept every remote working request, every flexi working request. They don't have to be accepted, but they have to be considered properly. And you have to give a good business reason as to why it's not going to be a good use of the business time or your time. It's not going to work for the business. So let me go through the actual breakdown of the fees, because this is a good example of piggybacking claims.
Sure.
And this is what happens a lot. And we call it kind of throwing in the kitchen sink, not the kitchen kink. It's the kitchen sink. Because when we go into tribunals, as you'll all be aware, there's no fee for a staff member to take a business to tribunal. So a lot of the times you'll have a no-win, no-fee solicitor that will look at a claim,
they'll coach
someone into adding a claim and adding another claim. So this started off as a £5,000 reward for aggravated damages occasioned by direct sex discrimination. And then there was an extra £7,500 for injury to feelings as a result of direct discrimination. And then a further unfair dismissal award was made of £8,186 as a compensatory award of £350, and an additional injury to feelings award of £10,000, £21,886 for financial loss plus interest, and that all amounted to a total of £59,612. Claims that's fine. And the claims for disability discrimination and failures to make reasonable adjustments failed. So they actually tried to go for a little bit more as well, and they still came out with just shy of £60,000. And for me, this is a prime example of a business owner where we've tried to help. Because I think for me, in my head, I looked into this case a little bit more and gone through a bit more details. This was a business owner who wanted to look after his staff. He didn't want this lady working whilst going through such a horrific period of time, as you can appreciate. But the problem was, this lady, if she didn't work, she couldn't have lived off statutory sick pay. She couldn't have lived off that value of money. It was never going to be enough to pay her bills.
Yeah, of course.
It's not a short-term, the situation with the son going through cancer treatment wasn't a short-term thing. It wasn't going to be a week and she was back.
I think if he was trying to help and he was being, that was, the main reason, then perhaps he could have sought a solution of giving her full pay and leave, or those kind of things. That could have been a preventative measure. But,
yeah, exactly.
I know that's cost to the business, but it's obviously cost a lot more to do it this way. So.
Yeah, and I think that's what the main area of this is. Take away, and I say this every single day to people I speak to. If ever you're approached by someone with any sort of request, whether it would be a flexi working request, a remote working request, whatever it may be, always go away and consider it, because that's the biggest thing any employment tribunal, any judge will state is, did you consider the request? Have you shown evidence of you considering the request? Have you attempted to make reasonable adjustments? Because this lady, could she have worked shorter hours? Could they have changed her role so that she could potentially do little bits on the laptop from bedside? Again, she may not have been able to, and it could have been, nope, it's sensitive information. She's going to need to be on the phone quite a lot. There's not a chance she can do it. Right. So we're going to have to deny the request, but let's see if we can help you in other ways. Like you said, potentially paying sick pay for a little bit more. the business could potentially seek help for getting a loan, whatever it may be. There's other areas that they could have shown. And it's not, and this is my biggest thing, is this gentleman to me doesn't seem like a bad employer. He doesn't seem like someone that didn't want to help his staff. He just wanted.
It's just gone about it in the wrong way.
Yeah, he's gone about it and followed the wrong process. And his decision on, and this is where I think emotive and emotions can get in the way of business, because you create a business on emotions. Your passion drives a business, and you can become so successful because of your drive and your passion and your emotions. But when you make split decisions on emotive feelings, because that's what he potentially has done here, is I'm taking the decision out of your hand because I wouldn't have my wife doing this, because he feels like, do you know what? I wouldn't have her doing it. I'd work while she was in the hospital looking after our son.
You have to look at law and not personal emotions in many ways. You know, that there are perhaps many cases where people didn't deserve punishments, but unfortunately,
it's law,
the law's law, isn't it? Yeah. I think one of the things to think about as well, when you're creating or undertaking actions within the business, there's a little key thing we have in employment law, being fair, reasonable and transparent in your actions, which is FRT. So if you take that away, keep it in your
Write it down, FRT. And maybe one of these podcasts, weeks down the line, we may ask you what FRT stands for. We want the right answer.
And we want to talk about as well, by the way, we're coming towards the end of the podcast. We're changing up the podcast a little bit in the next coming weeks. So you're going to find us going out at 5:30 in the evening some nights. There's going to be some changes there in terms of timings, but we're also interviewing many different people from different walks of life, different businesses, business owners, people who provide other services, to keep the content fresh, so they can certainly talk about what they do, but we can also talk about their challenges relating to HR at the same time. So obviously it's going to be a big venture for us with change. You'll still get this particular half-hour session we're doing on a regular basis, but we're just excited to announce that to you. And if you are keen to promote yourself, your business, or you would like to talk to us live on air or over a Teams meeting, please do get in touch. thinkhr@avensure.com, and we'll be back to you and discuss the options for you. In addition, we just want to touch upon a case, because we've been dealing with the case recently. We're not going to mention any names for GDPR purposes, etc. But there is a case of a property business where we've had a Q&A through from somebody, and it was about long-term sickness. So a person came to work for a business for about a week.
Just shy of a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the person then went on sick for 6 months. And this company had a policy of full sick pay for 6 months, believe it or not. Surprise, surprise. And ultimately, after the 6 months, this person left and went to work for a competitor.
I mean, that is a surprise, isn't it?
It's surprise, surprise. And there are some kind of evidence, I think, across social media that person was also working for somebody else during that 6 months. Surprise, surprise. So that was we wanted to touch upon, because we've been looking at advising somebody on this, and we just wanted to touch upon what you could do in those circumstances, because there are so many businesses where they offer full sick pay, and you need to keep control of this, because there are unscrupulous people in the world. And that person, believe it or not, now is trying to claim holiday pay for the 6 months, which they are entitled to, because they accrue the holidays even though they're on sick. And that's regardless whether they receive SSP or not, or full sick pay. They will accrue holidays. So ultimately, it's costing this business thousands. And we said to them, well, why don't you change this? Why don't you change your full sick pay method? I guarantee that's going to cut down your...
Yeah, because there's two things here. One, now this has happened, one that needs to be changed. For me, having full sick pay, people will look at it as an incentive, or it's us as a business showing that we care. And I do get that, but at the same point, there's nothing to stop you from doing that and paying staff full sick pay without having it in your policy. There's nothing to stop with looking at cases and helping out.
You can have it as a discretionary thing,
And
but you have to be careful with
You've
that.
got to be careful how it's worded.
Yeah.
But for me,
you can't give it to one person for such length of time and then
No,
somebody else
exactly.
not. Yeah.
but if you're incentivized, for me, it's an incentive to be off. If you're going to get paid the same when you're in as when you're off, you're going to get so many people that choose to.
Yeah, unless it's like performance related.
Yeah, you've got a headache. Oh, I'm going to be off because I'm getting paid whether I'm at home or in work. But in this case, for what they should have done at the time, because they've got the policy in place, long-term sick starts from week 4. After 4 weeks, that's when you essentially start long-term sickness. So for me, as a business owner, from week 5, I'd be dealing with this. I wouldn't have left it for the 6 months because that's how long it is. From week 5, you should be dealing with them and having that call of how you can manage the situation. What are they off sick with? Are they going to be capable to come back into work? Do you need to seek medical advice? Do you need to go down the occupational health route to either manage this person back into the workplace environment and make reasonable adjustments? Or if they're no longer going to be capable to do the job anyway, are we going to use steps to manage them out of their business? Because a lot of people are scared to manage someone out when they're on sick, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously you open yourself up to claims,
Of course you do.
but to be fair, you do anyway. So I mean, you've got to, as long as you take the right steps, you're covering yourself.
And that's the biggest thing. Follow the right processes, do the right steps. Never ever take it upon yourself, because you're not a medical professional, to say someone isn't sick or someone isn't capable or is capable. Always seek medical attention. Just like when you need payroll advice, you seek a payroll specialist, or HR advice, you seek a HR specialist. So always seek medical attention first, but there's always steps you can go through. And again, in this case, it would have saved the business thousands, because they wouldn't have paid 6 months worth of sick pay to then have the person leave. And now they are entitled to the accrued holiday.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they don't pay it, again, they'll probably end up in a court where they'll have legal fees plus the holiday settlement. And you never know, they could piggyback more claims on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they could start claiming they were off sick because of stress and it was caused by the workplace, or there could be all kinds thrown in there. What tends to happen at tribunal is that everything gets thrown at the wall, every bit of history that's ever happened. 3 years ago, so and so said this to me, nothing was done about it. So it's just I know it's difficult from, if you're a small business especially, to have structure in place, to have that full policy in place, to have those day-to-day management exercises in place. But there are ways we can do that, and please do get in touch with us, because we can adequately introduce you to some of our consultants who come out and see you. Give us a shout at thinkhr@havinsure.com. We can have a look over everything that you're doing. We can come out and see you, sit down with you, talk to you about ways in which you can implement strategies that a larger business can, because they have the staff and manpower to do so. But you can do that as a small business, and there are many, many exercises and ways we can help you do it.
Yeah, and even if you feel like you've done something right, or you're going to be fine, do me a favor. And I always say, ask for a bit of clarity. There's nothing easier than just picking up the phone. You've got our advice numbers, the 0161 527 1000 and
0161 509 7481.
And all you need to do is pick up the phone. We'll give you a bit of clarity. It's not going to cost you anything. It's just going to be a sake of, Ben, Adrian, this is what's going on. What should I have done? Or have I done this right? And at that point, we can give you the advice to either go and change what you've done and backtrack it a little bit and go a different route. Or if you've come to us beforehand, we'll talk you through a step-by-step and make sure that you're not going to be in a place where you're spending thousands for something that could have just been a simple change.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, a simple discrimination policy for age, diversity policy, an amount of training, even e-learning training. No matter how big a business you are, you could have had that in place quite easily. So
exactly,
£200,000 plus legal costs.
And in my case, for the sake of just considering reasonable adjustments and what the business could have done, and again, maybe a bit of training, you'd have saved yourself £60,000.
Okay, guys, well, we're going to wrap it up today. We're coming up to the half-hour mark, which is our usual period. So we're going to go off now and start advising different business owners all day. But we wish you well. Have a great Friday if you're watching on Friday. If you're not watching on Friday,
don't go through the days of the week. They
don't
don't need to.
If it's Monday, okay. Just like and subscribe on the channel for us. Keep an eye on our LinkedIn page and also the YouTube channel for the upcoming interviews with different business owners, business coaches, service providers. We'll be hosting those very, very shortly.
Lovely. And if you do have any questions in the meantime, like I said, feel free to pick up the phone, drop us an email, and we'll respond to you as soon as possible.
So it's thinkhr@avonshaw.com.
And then 0161 527 1000.
0161 509 7481.
Lovely. Take care, guys.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Excellent, Benny.